1 month ago, Charlie Kirk, American conservative activist, was assassinated in Utah, adding to a long list of public assassinations in the freest country in the world. Freest country, but I can't live. I couldn't help but notice that Canada's list of assassinations is much shorter than America's. What I'm counting as an assassination is whatever appears on Wikipedia, so I can get into the least amount of trouble possible. Anyways, the first assassination in Canadian history occurred on the 7th of April, 1868. 9 months before this incident, Canada confederated into the Dominion of Canada. One of these founding fathers was Irish-born Thomas D'Arcy McGee. On the 6th of April, 1868, McGee participated in a parliamentary debate that went past midnight into the 7th of April. McGee was attempting to open the door into Mrs. Trotter's boarding house in Ottawa. However, he was shot in the head by an at that time unknown assassin on the opposite side of the door. Several bystanders came rushing to the scene, but the assassin slipped out and remained anonymous until the next day, where he was spotted. McGee was given the first state funeral in Canadian history, an honor most recently given to Brian Mulroney. His funeral in Ottawa is known to be one of the largest funerals in Canadian history, with 30,000 people paying respects, with 80,000 doing so in Montreal, out of a total population of 105,000. Patrick J. Whelan, a Fenian and a Catholic, was accused, tried, convicted, and later executed for the crime on the 11th of February, 1869. The jury was decisively swayed by the forensic evidence that Whelan's gun had been fired shortly before the killing. Together with the circumstantial evidence that he had threatened and stalked McGee, historian David Wilson points out the forensic test conducted in 1972 showed that the fatal bullet was compatible with both the gun and the bullets that Whelan owned. William End was an Irish-born lawyer and politician. He immigrated to England and the United States before settling in Canada at an unknown date. End died in his office from a house fire by, again, an unknown suspect. The only difference being that we still don't know who killed End. End died by arson on the 14th of December, 1872, likely by someone whom he had sentenced to jail, but that is pure speculation. George Brown is arguably the most important non-prime minister to ever have Canadian citizenship. Born in Scotland in 1818, Brown moved to Canada in 1843, where he is most famous for being the founder and editor of the newspaper The Globe. He played a huge role in national unity, being present for both the Charlottetown and Quebec City conferences. He was most well known reformer in the whole of Canada, east or west. When Canada confederated with Brown's help, he created the Liberal Party of Canada. As the unofficial leader of the party, he led the Liberals into the first election in Canadian history in 1867. Although the Liberals lost with the Conservatives under Prime Minister Sir John A. Macdonald reaching a majority, Brown received national prominence. Having lost his chosen seat in the election, Brown refused to run in a safer seat and went on holiday to Scotland. In 1880, the Globe was struggling financially, as Brown personally paid for updating the newspaper's printing press. On the 25th of March, 1880, former Globe employee who had been fired because of the financial struggles, George Bennett, had burst into Brown's office and shot a bullet into Brown's thigh. Bennett was secured by bystanders, and though the wound was deemed minor, Brown went home in Toronto to rest. However, his leg became infected and he obtained a fever and delirium before ending up dead on the 9th of May, 1880. Bennett was then executed and hanged. William C. Hopkinson was an Indian police officer and later immigration enforcer. On the 31st of August, 1914, one of Hopkinson's informants, Harnam Singh, was found dead, and on the 3rd of September, Arjan Singh, another informant, was killed. Again, on the 5th, Bella Singh, yet another informant, was killed. On the 21st of October 1914, he was set to testify at Bella Singh's murder trial, but Bhai Mewa Singh Ji went to court that same day to prevent Hopkinson from testifying. Outside the courtroom, he shot Hopkinson, instantly killing him. After shooting Hopkinson, Bhai Mewa Singh dropped his weapons and surrendered to the authorities. Bhai Mewa Singh Ji was put on trial for the murder of Officer Hopkinson. The presiding judge found him guilty of killing an inspector, and Bhai Mewa Singh Ji was sentenced to death. At his trial, he told the court that he did not regret killing Hopkinson. It took until 1970 for the next assassination on Canadian soil, and in an interesting fashion. On the 5th of October 1970, James Cross, a British trade commissioner, was kidnapped by the Front de Libération du Québec. Pierre Laporte, deputy premier of Quebec, called the kidnapping a wind of madness temporarily blowing out across Canada. On the 10th, Laporte himself was kidnapped. The kidnappers, Paul Rose, Jacques Rose, Francis Simard, and Bernard Lortie, approached Laporte playing football with his nephew and forced him into their van at gunpoint. Laporte was chosen because of his connections to the Catroni crime family, and partly because he had no bodyguards. In response to the October crisis, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, invoked the War Measures Act to allow raids into any house to retrieve Laporte and Cross. Laporte was handcuffed, chained to the floor, and blindfolded. However, by feeling his way around the room, he discovered a window. On the 16th of October 1970, he heard police sirens from outside the window and decided to escape the room from the window. He broke through the window, but his leg chains left him dangling in the air. The broken glass severed the arteries on his left wrist, right thumb, and in his chest. As he dangled in the air, Laporte screamed, "Help! Help! Somebody please help me!" But nobody other than his captors heard his cries. His captors pulled him back in. The police siren that Laporte heard was due to a report of a fire at a house further down Armstrong Street. Over the course of the night, Laporte was bleeding badly from his severed arteries, and it was apparent that he would die soon if he did not receive prompt medical attention. As he laid out on the floor, Laporte seemed to resign to death. On the 17th of October, 1970, his captors decided to strangle him to death rather than seek medical assistance. On the same day, his body was found in the trunk of a car at the Montreal airport. Attila Altıkurt. Colonel Attila Altıkurt was the Turkish military attaché to the Turkish embassy in Ottawa. At 9 o'clock in the morning, on his way to work, he was shot by ASALA, an Armenian militarist group. When his car stopped for a red light on the Kichi Zibi Mikan at Island Park Drive, a car stopped nearby. A passenger got out and fired 9 shots from a 9mm Browning handgun through the passenger window of the car, killing the diplomat instantly. Dino Bravo. Dino Bravo was a professional wrestler, but after his retirement, he turned to organized crime, joining the Catroni crime family of Montreal. On the 10th of March, 1993, Bravo was found shot dead at the age of 44 at his Vermont, Laval, Quebec home. He was hit by 11 bullets in the head and torso, and his alleged role in illegal cigarette smuggling in Canada is popularly believed to have led to his unsolved homicide. According to former opponent Bret Hart, Bravo confided to friends shortly before his death that he knew his days were numbered. He was a nephew by marriage of Montreal crime boss Vic Catroni and was believed by authorities to be involved in his organization for some time. Brian Smith was a professional ice hockey player and newscaster when on the 1st of August, 1995, he was shot minutes after the CJOH 6 o'clock newscast. He was on his way to a charitable fundraising event. He died about 18 hours later on the 2nd of August. The gunman, Jeffrey Ehrenberg, had schizophrenia and believed the news station was broadcasting messages in his head specifically. Smith's death was a shock to the Ottawa sports community. The Ottawa Senators honored him with a Smitty 18 patch on their jersey, which they wore for the 1995-96 season, and with a banner hanging in the rafters at Canadian Tire Centre. The press box at Canadian Tire Centre was also renamed the Brian Smitty Smith Press Box in his honor. Flags flew at half-staff at the Ottawa Lynx baseball game, and a tribute was held by the Ottawa Rough Riders, whose players raised their helmets with the crowd joined in a 1-minute cheer. Niccolo Rizzuto was an Italian-Canadian crime boss and the founder of the Rizzuto crime family. On the 10th of November 2010, Rizzuto was shot and killed in his residence in Montreal from a single bullet that penetrated the double-paned glass of his mansion. At 86 years old, his death was believed to be the final blow to the Rizzuto crime family. On the 12th of July 2013, Salvatore Calalute, a Toronto criminal figure suspected by police of being the assassin who shot Rizzuto, was shot dead. Ripudaman Singh Malik was a Vancouver businessman who was involved with opening Khalsa Credit Union and Khalsa schools. He was suspected of being the bomber in the Air India Flight 182 bombing. He was charged in 2000 but later acquitted in 2005. In July 2022, Malik was murdered in Surrey, British Columbia. The RCMP arrested 2 individuals in his murder, who later pled guilty to second-degree murder. Hardeep Singh Nijjar was a Canadian Sikh involved with the Khalistan movement. He was a prominent member of the Sikhs for Justice movement and spearheaded the group's Khalistan referendum campaign. In the early northern summer of 2022, Nijjar was alerted by Canadian Security Intelligence Service officials of a likely assassination plot against him. According to his son, Nijjar had been meeting with CSIS officers once or twice a week in the days before his killing and had another meeting scheduled 2 days after he was killed. CSIS officers warned Nijjar of threats to his life and advised him to stay at home. On the 18th of June 2023, Nijjar was shot and killed in his pickup truck by 2 masked gunmen in the parking lot of the Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara in Surrey, British Columbia. He walked out of the Gurdwara that evening and was gunned down approximately 2 minutes later in his Dodge Ram. He was hit by 34 bullets. In September 2023, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Canadian security agencies had opened an investigation into Nijjar's killing, which officers suspect of having been ordered by India. At the time, Trudeau warned that any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty. The killing caused a diplomatic dispute between India and Canada, not fully repaired until this year. As this assassination was only 2 years ago, the killer is yet to be tried.